Why has Black Lives Matter done in 8 years what anarcho-capitalists have failed to do in 47? Welcome to Keith Knight, Don't Tread on Anyone, and the Libertarian Institute. Today, I'm joined by Andrew of Popular Liberty. Andrew, where is the best place to find your collection of work and research?
At subscribestar.com/popular-liberty is where you can get all of my best content, and some of it is free. You don't have to pay for all of it, and that is where I do my articles about archotropism, and that's the sort of thing I'm known for. The anti-tax, ditto the anti-tax. So
Roger that. And as well, my managing editor at the Libertarian Institute, Pete Quiñones. Pete, where's the best place to find your podcast and collection of articles?
Libertarian Institute. Just go there, and up on the what do they call that? The stab, I can't remember what the hell that thing's called. You'll see my name at the top. Just click on there and you'll see everything.
Today, we are going to go over the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, either methods that we can use and put in our arsenal to hopefully achieve a free society, or maybe just get to know them a little better so they can have less effectiveness when being used by the cathedral on us or friends and family. Andrew, start us off with the first law that stood out to you as something that you think our audiences can benefit from knowing about.
Number 8, make other people come to you. Use bait if necessary. Make your opponent come to you. When you force others to act, you're in control. Bait them, then attack. I really like that idea because it's the basic idea is you should control the circumstance. If you're rushing in towards that, if you're going to them, they control the circumstance that you're coming into, and you could easily walk into a trap or something like that. And that's why I kind of like this one. I apply it politically as hey, you need to be like, if you're paying people to kind of come do what you want, that way you can control that act. If people have to come to you to get something that they want, namely, payment of some sort for any reason, you can control those circumstances. And so, stop being poor. Just kidding.
Pete, what is the biggest, the first one that stood out to you?
Law number 38. Think as you like, but behave like others. If you make a show of going against the times, flaunting your unconventional ideas and unorthodox ways, people will think that you only want attention and that you look down upon them. They will find a way to punish you for making them feel inferior. It is far safer to blend in and nurture the common touch. Share your originality only with tolerant friends and those who are sure to appreciate your uniqueness. I think anybody who has been in the libertarian sphere for longer than 5 minutes knows this. The first time you read Anatomy of the State and you realize, oh, the state is illegitimate, well, I'm just going to go start telling everybody, and all of a sudden you become a pariah amongst your friends. I mean, it's almost like you're going to them with Amway. I mean, literally, they're treating you like you have a multi-level marketing scheme opportunity for them. Just chill, relax, learn. If you around your friends, plant seeds. It's so easy to do. Just bring up something that's happening in the news that they know about and put a liberty-minded spin on it. And if you are going to, and another thing about this one is, I think of what Andrew and I talk about is becoming a part of your local GOP with the idea of passing his anti-tax. You're not going in there full bore, hey, this is the anti-tax and this is what we're going to be doing. No, you get in there, you make friends with everybody, and you're just one of the guys, just one of the girls. And then as you get to know everybody, you're like, seen this done over in the Nordic countries, and I got an idea. So pretty much that's it. Just basically don't be that lunatic that, went to an Amway meeting and now you're calling all your friends, telling them that they're going to become millionaires overnight. Same thing with libertarianism. Just relax, calm down, take it easy.
You got to behave normal if you want to be taken seriously, which is, really, really strange. People take you seriously if you act like them. but they're not going to take you seriously if you act like a freak, like an out group. It's an in-group reference that you have to play on.
Definitely. Some of my most successful conversations were inside of the Coctopus at GOP meetings in Arizona, where you become friends with them, you get invited to the dinners, and slowly but surely you attack the right from the right and the left from the left. Attack is not even the correct word. You're nudging the right from the right and the left from the left. All great things that it doesn't give you the taxation is theft feeling of, you're really shocking everyone, but it pays off in the long run when you have 50 friends you can call at any moment in the freedom sphere. It absolutely is worth the patience.
And I would add to this, this is actually the basis for the Mockingbird strategy that you see the neocons use with conservatives. Because if you notice that like the neocons, they're basically progressives. Everything they believe is whatever the actual progressives believed 10 years ago. And they're basically identical. So how is it that they can be basically progressives minus 10 years and and then get elected by a bunch of right-wing conservatives who want nothing to do with that stuff? It's because they know how to in-group signal, and they're really, really good at in-group signaling. And they'll talk about, hey, we have the same enemies, we believe in the same values, and oh, by the way, I'm voting for for this way and that way, and a buttload of foreign wars, yay Israel. And it's like, it's like they'll like line you up as like, yeah, we oppose oppose gay marriage, we oppose critical race theory, we want to cut taxes and support Israel. It's like wait, what was that last one? And, but this is how they do it, is that they've mastered this art of in-group signaling, being a mockingbird, if you would. And I think this is something libertarians could easily learn to use. Is like, yeah, we believe in opposing the gays and physically removing the degenerates from our culture, and we want to have pro-family values and good schools for our kids that are private, and also taxation is theft. Yeah, but maybe not quite like that, but you could easily use this sort of in-group signaling to start to try to blend in and get elected in and without ever compromising your libertarian principles.
Yeah, that's like the ultimate Corona extra strategy, where they give you things that you want: friends, having fun, playing volleyball, laughing, and then they show their beverage, so your brain associates that really good time with their product.
That is exactly it.
The first one that jumped out to me is law number 6. That is court attention at all costs. Everything is judged by its appearance. What is unseen counts for nothing. Never let yourself get lost in the crowd, then, or buried in oblivion. Stand out. Be conspicuous at all costs. Make yourself a magnet of attention by appearing larger, more colorful, more mysterious than the bland and timid masses. So the first thing that stands out to me, everything is judged by appearance. Well, there's an old expression in politics: perception is reality. So what they do is they'll take one example of someone who is impoverished, bring them to the center, and say, this is why we need trillions of dollars in welfare. South Korea outperforming North Korea, or West Germany outperforming East Germany. It's so hard to really grab onto those things. So the perception of that one person and their story brings to life so many more emotions than all the objective empirical analysis that can be done. So this trick of what is unseen counts for nothing. As Bastiat would clearly say, well, it almost doesn't count that all of these businesses were never created. All these people never got their foot in the door because of minimum wage legislation. It's like they don't even count. They don't even matter because we don't have them to stand them in the center of a podium and say, this is why I support policy A, B, and C. So I think we can really benefit by finding the unseen and making sure that we put the spotlight on what would be unseen to the untrained libertarian eye. Anyone have comments on that, or Andrew, just go into your next one?
No, I'm sorry. Repeat that. You spoke a little quickly.
I'm sorry.
I was getting ready for my next one. Sorry, but
You know, let's go into your the next law you have.
this is embarrassing. Whoopsie. Law number 9: win through your actions, never through argument. Any momentary triumph you think you have gained through argument is really a Pyrrhic victory. The resentment and ill will you stir up is stronger and lasts longer than any momentary change of opinion. It is much more powerful to get others to agree with you through your actions without saying a word. Demonstrate, do not explicate. I think this is, actually something, libertarians really should learn, even though we're open to debates and we like to pride ourselves on being, more open-minded than the, average person. And we say, oh, we had our minds changed, because to become a libertarian, you had to have had your mind changed by somebody. It usually didn't come, like, there are very, very few of us who are, like second generation libertarians. And so, for us, we naturally assume we can, just because this is our own lived experience, that we can actually change other people's minds this way. This is simply not the case. And like, what Pete talked about earlier with, hey, how we get elected, and we have this thing of the anti-tax, it's like, I don't go in, I wouldn't be going in and saying, arguing for, this way, that way, or a third way. What I would say is, here's what was done, and I think this could work for us. And, and I think that, and then you would say, you would go into your arguments, but you start with like an example of where it was actually done. And, and this is what actually will carry the day for you, because a lot of people, that they're very risk averse. They don't want to be the first to try a new thing, or the first to, try on a new ideology or whatever. And what you really want to do is, make it like, oh, this is actually a very normal thing that actually a lot of people have done. That way, it feels less risky to them. They're less averse to it. And, this is the another, it kind of dovetails with my other book series, how to win friends and influence people. It's like, when you criticize people, it's like you're going to just turn them off to you, and that you don't actually win their hearts this way. But I mean, unless you can tell, there is a time for it when they kind of tell you they're open to a new idea, like when they're actually searching for a new way of doing something. And it's like one of those life-changing moments. That's when you can make an argument to someone that really changes their mind, when their mind is actually open to it and they're looking for knowledge. There's an old Chinese principle or proverb that says, most people are kind of like a full bowl of rice. It's like there's no room left for anything else, and you have to first empty it out. And and they say that this, or actually they liken it to wisdom. A person, doesn't need wisdom until they're actually asking for it. It's like, they're like a full bowl of rice, and until they're actually emptied out and they recognize that they're ready for it, that's when you give it to them. And this, it's like, I really think I really like this one, because you can't win an argument, and that the resentment you're going to get from that is just, it's not worth it.
Absolutely have to pick those battles carefully. Pete, what is the next one that caught your attention?
This one's going to feed right into Andrew's one right now, and my first one. Preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once. Everybody understands the need for change in the abstract, but on the day-to-day level, people are creatures of habit. Too much innovation is traumatic and will lead to revolt. If you are new to a position of power, or an outsider trying to build a power base, make a show of respecting the old way of doing things. If change is necessary, make it feel like a gentle improvement on the past. And Andrew talks about this, or you can correct me if I'm misinterpreting you, Andrew, that people want a state. They desire a state. I mean, the overwhelming majority of people want a state. Well, if we're going to get what we want, we still have to give them what looks like a state, but it's really not a state, but it still has all the appearance of a state. But you can't do that all at once. You have to, it's going to take time. It's going to take little reform here, little reform there. When you hear Hoppe talking in What Must Be Done about, what you're doing with local government, you're not automatically running in there and saying, we need to privatize the schools. you're taking over a position here, taking over a position there, talking about how, well, maybe people working for the government shouldn't have a vote. Maybe people who get their money from the state shouldn't have a say in this. And you're just building and you're building and you're building.
Yeah.
If it's just too much at once, people are just they're going to revolt against it. But, it goes back to how to win friends and influence people. You get to know people. And the way you do that is by asking them questions and letting them talk. And then when they want you to talk, you ask them another question to let them talk. And that people love talking about themselves. And another word Andrew likes, you find out what their incentives are. And you give them to them. Except you give them to them the way you want to give it, the way you've designed it. But they're still going to be happy with it. So
exactly. Yeah. I mean, like you don't rush in, with the full abolition position. Like you're going to have to build up to it. Like think about like Rome wasn't built in a day, and it took us hundreds of years to get to the nightmare we're in right now. I mean, when we got our first republic, we're about to go on to our fifth one right now. It's like we had there's three in between where we are right now. And, this didn't happen overnight. And, I think when libertarians say, this is gradualism. It's like, remember slavery, if in 1840, would you have believed it? And I'm like, well, I mean, you're kind of skipping over the massive civil war in the middle of that, where like 500,000 people died. It's like, how about we, that's what happens when you take the extreme approach of, abolition now. And, I mean, this is what, and, we want to have all of the taxes paid by the other guy or whatever. Like this is the sort of thing that people will react very, very violently to is like, they don't like quick change. And so if you really want to go in a full abolition position, prepare to kill a lot of people. And if you have to, do that for your ideology to win, your ideology is probably evil. And and like, I mean, like with the schools, maybe start by just teaching the kids Rothbard. It's like, here's your new social studies, curriculum. It's called Anatomy of the State by Murray Rothbard. And, maybe they still want to teach socialism in schools. So here's Socialism by Mises. So it's like, start them there. And, I think that's a better way. And it's, little things that can, it had to have very, very, high impact. I call it high impact, low velocity. It's slow moving, but has a very massive outsized impact on, that's the sort of change you want to make. Subtle, slow, but big.
Yeah. And also, not only do you have to be prepared to end a lot of lives if you're going to do something, at the drop of a hat. Also, you might not get exactly what you want. I mean, if forced labor of cotton picking is bad, forced military service has to be 100 times worse. And
Exactly.
I mean, being forced into the trenches of World War I always love asking people that. Would you rather be forced to pick cotton for 4 years or forced to be in the mustard gas trenches of the First World War, where you're likely to get your hands blown off, your limbs blown off, watch your friends die, get PTSD, or how about the Second World War or the Vietnam War? I mean, being forced to fight into any of those was terrible. And maybe you're not exactly getting what you want if you just finally get that law passed. Well, what they did was they changed the name from cotton slave to conscript. So if you're still not getting at the root of the problem with those quick fixes. Andrew, what is your next one?
Let's see. Number 10. This is actually just excellent life advice. Forget power for a moment. This is excellent life advice. The title of it is Infection. Avoid the unhappy and the unlucky. You can die from someone else's misery. Emotional states are as infectious as diseases. You may feel you are helping the drowning man, but you are only participating in your own disaster. The unfortunate sometimes draw misfortune on themselves. They will also draw it on you. Associate with the happy and fortunate instead. And this is actually, just good life advice. People like to be around winners. they don't like to be around people who are losers. This is why rich people get so much welfare. Even though they're the ones who really don't need it. People like giving money to like the Elon Musks of the world, and that, and this is why he gets it. If you, and this is, kind of a two-sided advice that, if you're one of these people who's, constantly unhappy with life or constantly just down on his luck, people are not going to want to be around you. You don't want to be a Debbie Downer. Like every time, so you call someone, if you only talk about like the problems you're having in your life, people are not going to want to pick up that phone. And, and if you have someone in the group who's just a troublemaker or not even troublemaker, but they're only talking about, problems, and they're not really talking about solutions. And it seems like they're really quick to find fault in any sort of idea that's brought up. Get that guy out. Just boot him, say, hey, look, we don't like your attitude. Or maybe you can take him aside first and say, hey, we don't like your attitude. But, if that guy doesn't change, he needs to get the boot. It's like you can't have people who are only whiners, who find every single solution to be unprincipled, and who just want to debate, have debate club. It's like, this is your organization of power. It's not debate club. This is a dictatorship, and it really should be run that way and understood to be that way. It's not a democracy, and democracies don't work. They only cause infighting and factiousness. I think that but yeah, it's like, if you're going to be running a organization that like you don't want that culture to be unhappy or full of people who just don't win anything. It's like, because no one wants to join that, no one wants to follow to that, no one wants to donate to that. It's like like people saying earlier, you got to give them a good time. And having people there who are always, kind of Debbie Downers, or always problem finders, or, principals, as they like to call themselves, that, that is just a recipe for a failed organization that's not going to go anywhere. Get those people out, physically remove them.
Pete, next one that caught your attention.
Law 42, strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. Trouble can often be traced to a single strong individual, the stirrer, the arrogant underling, the poisoner of goodwill. You allow such people room to operate, others will succumb to their influence. Do not wait for the troubles they will cause to multiply. Do not try to negotiate with them. They are irredeemable. Neutralize their influence by isolating or banishing them. Strike at the source of the trouble, and the sheep will scatter. And this goes to what Andrew was just talking about. All these are interplay so much. If you have somebody, if you own a business and you have somebody who is taking a leadership role, and they have people following them, and why does it sound like I'm talking about unionizing? Then you need to get those commies out of there. And really, the easiest way, if you see like an uprising, this could be something as stupid as like somebody on Twitter with 10,000 followers who is just being a jerk. And if you smash them, they'll just go away, and all their little minions will go away. But really, and what this goes to politics, is if you have somebody on your local city council who is just a cancer, and you have a re-elections coming up and they're up, and your PAC has some money, just smash them with ads, smash them with an ad, smash them, look into their background, do what you have to do to get that person out of there and get that influence out of there. And, whatever underlings that they have who are hanging around with them, and give them what little power, or even the people voting for them, they won't vote for them. It's just, this is common sense, and such a good one.
Oh, I mean, and that's a one that has like a double side to it, because you also don't want to be that guy. It's like the guy who's causing trouble for everyone else's power. Remember, this is a shout out to call out to my archotropism framework, where you have your first law where since its value is relative, that means that power will prefer to coexist with other power rather than be in conflict with it. And so if you're and that's because it's more valuable that way. And so this is what, why, states will turn into always monopolies, is that's its value system. That's its incentive system. Now, if you're the, that one libertarian who's always causing problems for people instead of trying to blend in, instead of trying to coexist, you're making yourself a target. You're making yourself a target to be smashed, and, and so, don't do that. That's it. There's a time and place for opposition. Yes. I mean, you're not being, completely, you're not just going to like vote for Israel for nothing. So, like there's a time and place for opposition, and then and those are kind of rare, but you really need to be trying as hard as you can to horse trade, trade people what they want, because again, there's a preference for power. So some people might want some things more than others, and you can always make that trade to them, that find a way to give and not just take. You don't want to be the squeaky wheel, because that's how you're going to get smashed, and your followers are going to be the ones that are scattered. So don't be that guy.
Andrew, what's your next one?
Let's see, number 15, and this is one that's going to be tough for this is going to be tough for a lot of libertarians. Law number 15, crush your enemy totally. It says, all great leaders since Moses have known that a feared enemy must be crushed completely. Sometimes they have learned this the hard way. If one ember is left alight, no matter how dimly it smolders, a fire will eventually break out. More is lost through stopping halfway than through total annihilation. The enemy will recover and will seek revenge. Crush him, not only in body, but in spirit. And this is actually this is a big mistake that, right-wingers make repeatedly throughout history, where they don't fight to the end. And they don't fight to the, basically to the death. It's particularly in war, where with the South, it's there was at one point in the Civil War where General Lee had basically routed the Northern Army, and he was able to have like a clear line straight to Washington. He could have sacked Washington and probably captured Lincoln and just completely ended the war. But he thought that, oh well, I've showed dominance, and now we're and now the war is basically going to be over. And he was wrong, and the Northern Army came back. And eventually that was when they hired Sherman, and he had his march to the sea, which, killed, hundreds of thousands of people, and, just wrecked the South, and you saw this again, like even further back, like with Hannibal in the Punic Wars, or the Second Punic War with Rome. There was one point where he had just annihilated the other enemy completely. Like there was like a force of I think it was like 20,000 Roman soldiers that had just been completely wiped out. And I think it was Lake Trasimene was the battle. I might be wrong about that, but it's like he completely wiped them out, and he had an open line to go and fight, to go and just sack Rome, and he didn't. And the reason was he had this idea in his head that, no, we fight until dominance has been shown. We don't fight to exterminate. And what did Rome do? They came back and exterminated Carthage. And Hannibal could have stopped him, but he didn't. And he could have ended the war right there. It's like, no, you need to. And this is, I think, it's something that the right always does, is we don't fight to exterminate the left. The left is definitely fighting to exterminate us. And this is why I say the right is misguided and the left is pure evil. It's like they're fighting the real war, which is a war of extermination, and the right could crush them at basically any time, but we just don't have it in us to do that. And libertarians as members of the right, this is something that we suffer from most, is that we have this idea that of only using defensive force, and you fight until basically until we have a minimal use of force policy. That comes from our belief in common law. Common law says we have to use a minimal level of force, not a maximum level of force. The left does not have any such qualms about maximum force. And this is something I really think it's a mistake that the right and libertarians both make, that we are not willing to fight, to just annihilate the enemy totally. We're not willing to, just break the left. If we did, we could win, and we could have our Ancapistan, but we're not willing to go there.
Pete, Law 21, what do you have for us?
Play a sucker to catch a sucker. Seem dumber than your mark. No one likes feeling stupider. I love that it's stupider is here instead of more stupid than the next person. The trick then is to make your victims feel smart, and not just smart, but smarter than you are. Once convinced of this, they will never suspect that you may have ulterior motives. And this to me just seems logical. Going into any job, like say you're going into a job and the guy who's interviewing you, you want his job. Well, maybe it's not a good idea to let him know that that's your goal, or maybe to put him at ease by not telling everything right up front. But also in politics, it seems that this is something to do sort of like the GOP Mises plan of getting people hired locally. We don't want to let on exactly what our end goal is right up front. Going in with just using the message going in, we're going to fight the mandates. We're going to fight any gun control laws. We're going to fight we're going to fight for liberty here, and make it like a real simple kind of liberty thing where it's almost like, oh, I'm a Neanderthal coming in here to, to say this is not going to happen here. We're going to put our foot down, and we're going to be like just regular conservative Republicans, taxes bad, freedom good. And then, down the road, they might find out that you might be a little smarter than you're letting on.
Exactly.
Andrew,
hide your power.
The Law 22.
Use the surrender tactic. Transform weakness into power. When you are weaker, never fight for honor's sake. Choose surrender instead. Surrender gives you time to recover. Time to torment and irritate your conqueror. Time to wait for his power to wane. Do not give him the satisfaction of fighting and defeating you. Surrender first. By turning the other cheek, you infuriate and unsettle him. Make surrender a tool of power. And, this is something that, we see the left do very, very often. I mean, it's the, that old quote that, when I am weaker than you, I ask you for my rights, and when I am stronger, because rights are according to your nature. And when I am stronger than you, I take your rights because that is according to my nature. And that's like the essence of the left right there, is that, they will use like victimhood, in this case, weakness, or they'll use, victimhood as an excuse for aggression. This is what they're talking about when they say, oh, it's a microaggression. That means I get to have a macroaggression against you. And that's why I get to, I think, you offended me, and that's a microaggression. Therefore, I get to, punch you in the face and call you a Nazi and all that. And and they've managed to weaponize being the weaker. They are the weaker of the two sides, but they're the side that really, really, really wants to fight. And the stronger of the two sides, the right, doesn't really want to have a fight. That they prefer to kind of just pay him to go away or whatever. But what this creates is that the left has now managed to just weaponize being the weaker side. They're able to win while being weaker because they always pretend they always think they're losing. They always this is something I think Yarvin talks about, is that they have this almost religious belief that they're always about to face a right-wing Pinochet. They always think they're losing, and they're not. They're like dominating everything, and like they cry how their fist hurts when it crushes your face.
Yeah, that was Jeff Dice's great point in his imposers and the imposed upon discussion, where he says the imposers are people who believe in positive rights. The imposed upon are everyone else. By the way, there's an amazing trick where the imposers play the victim, and they're terrific at it. It was so interesting how that script flips. Pete, next law for us.
Law number 23, concentrate your forces. Conserve your forces and energies by keeping them concentrated at their strongest point. You gain more by finding a rich mine and mining it deeper than by flitting with one shallow mine to another, from one shallow mine to another. Intensity defeats extensity every time. When looking for sources of power to elevate you, find the one key guarantor, the fat cow who will give you milk for a long time to come. This seems to be pointing towards, well, at least in the ending, people that will funnel funds your way, or power, which both are equally important. But I want to use this to, again, bring up the GOP Mises PAC, because as Andrew has said, we're concentrating our forces into places that we are well convinced that that'll work. I mean, concentrating our forces in the Bronx in New York right now would just be a waste of money, a waste of time, a waste of power, and it would be embarrassing to us. So we're looking at places in deeply red places, in deeply red states. I just heard Tho Bishop talking about how his county, Trump won by 43 points. I mean, a DNC Mises caucus wouldn't be, Mises PAC wouldn't be looking to go into that place right now. They'd be really stupid to try that. But the GOP Mises PAC would feel pretty confident, I think, seeking to get some of the things that we're looking to get done doing that. You concentrate your power and your forces and your money where you know it will work, so that you are not wasting time. That's another one of the reasons why candidates that are running specifically as libertarians, I wouldn't waste my money with them, because maybe there is a chance that they can win. And I know some libertarians won this past Tuesday, so that makes 0.0007% of the United States seats, including everything municipal and down to the most local dog catcher. Well, okay, but I think you need to concentrate and conserve. I mean, I just think that that's really a smart thing to do.
Yeah, we also have to have a hierarchy of values. We have to understand, what's most important, and this is the law of diminishing marginal utility. Is that most important things first, and then less, and then less, and then less, and we have to say, hey, where are we going to get the most bang for our buck? And that is not in blue states. That's blue states, blue state libertarians. You need to move. You need to move out of there, and or at the minimum, you need to be donating money to people in red states who can actually make a difference, because this isn't going to work for you and where you are right now. And if you're just like throwing good money after bad, if you're donating to like even red candidates in blue states, it doesn't work. And
saying that, Andrew, one thing that I had pushback on that once, talking about telling people just get the hell out of blue areas, and they say, well, you also talk about how important culture and family is, and yet there's a real chance. Yeah, and if they don't want to go, I mean, especially if you have kids, what are you doing? I mean, seriously, get them out of there. Get them out. If there is a chance that you can have more liberty somewhere else, I mean, anyone who doesn't believe culture and, at this point, governors matter. I mean, over the last 20 months, would you have rather lived in California or rather lived in Florida? And if you refuse to answer that question, that is my literal definition of living in Ancapistan in your head. I mean, you're just, your principles are going to take you. They're not worth anything. Yeah, they're not worth anything. You don't really care about freedom. You just say you do.
Yeah, I mean,
that's one of my favorite Rothbard lines. I think it's in Egalitarianism as Revolt Against Nature, where he says, can we please not, but do this, where aggression is aggression, doesn't matter. It's more a state is a state. It's all the same. He goes, I don't have much to say about this, but I'll say this. Jack kills one person. He's now committed murder. Does it now matter if he goes on and murders 10 million other people. Okay, yeah, we could see that some instances are better than others. Therefore, it's okay for us to have preferences with regard to aggression. I just love. Of course, I did the annoying
Yeah,
long way of
it's
saying it, but he
That's
was so brilliant with that point.
it's so succinct too. The way he puts it. It's like, this is Mises kind of talks about this too with your preferred. What is it? Your stated preference and what's your revealed preference? And it's like your stated preference is, I really prefer liberty. I prefer, sound monetary policy, good fiscal policy. I prefer, all this stuff. And yet you live in a big blue urban shithole, in a big blue urban shithole state. It's like, uh it's like that those two don't go together. It's like, I have to say, I have to put, I can understand. It's like, it's one thing if you're like living in Austin, which is, in the middle of Texas. It's like, okay, I can get that. But if you're like in, LA, and you're in the middle of California, which is like in the middle of California, it's like, I'm sorry, buddy. This is, it's like, you don't get to pull that one. And you can say this is your state, this is your preference, but your revealed preference is really what's real.
Andrew,
And
law 26.
law 26, keep your hands clean. And you must seem a paragon of civility and efficiency. Your hands are never soiled by mistakes and nasty deeds. Maintain a spotless appearance by using others as scapegoats and cat's paws, to disguise your involvement. And this is something that's really, really important, because something Sun Tzu talks about in his Art of War is that the general has to have the moral law behind him. And you can't be a good leader and not embody the moral law. But strategy is kind of an evil person's game. So you're going to need to hire a few of those guys to go do your dirty work for you, and that way you can, I didn't know about it, plausible deniability, all that stuff. And that otherwise, you're not going to win. You can't just be, have a whole bunch of heroes who always tell the truth and always do what's right, and and expect to win against the mafia pretending to be a human rights organization. That's not, the game is to be the mafia. Like walking in saying, "Hi, I'm not the mafia," is like, well, okay, you just made yourself a target, and now they know not to vote for you. And by the way, the system is set up by the mafia for the mafia, to prosper the mafia. So if you're not gonna, if you as a libertarian are not planning on being a gangster, then politics is the wrong game for you. And but yeah, I mean, you're going to want to have the moral law behind you, but you're going to want to have a few gangsters as well to do the dirty work that you don't have to.
Pete, law 19.
Know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person. There are many different kinds of people in the world, and you can never assume that everyone will react to your strategies in the same way. Deceive or outmaneuver some people, and they will spend the rest of their lives seeking revenge. They are wolves in lamb's clothing. Choose your victims and opponents carefully, then never offend or deceive the wrong person. Just a quick one from business. When I was in sales, somebody walked in the door, and the way they were dressed, I should have instinctively been like, I don't want to deal with this person. And I turned out to just walk up to the person, treat them with respect, and literally the sales every month from this person like paid for my groceries. I mean, he turned out to be one of the wealthiest people in Georgia. And and he was dressed, he had painter's shorts on with paint all over him and a wife beater on. A little, like a 90-pound black dude, a little black dude, old black dude. And it turned out he was one of the wealthiest people in Georgia. And the sales I did with him like really like made my nut every month on a lot of things. But with this, I mean, there's so many ways you can go with this. Well, one of the things that Andrew's talked about as far as like getting to private cities and private societies is that people want a state, and if people desire a state, you got to make it look like they're getting a state, but maybe they're not really getting a state, but it looks like a state. It's just a lot of private property involved with this quote unquote state. And when you're doing this, when you're going through this process, you're going to deal with people who are very powerful and have a lot of influence. And you want to make sure that they're on your side, that they are seeing the benefit in this for them, and make sure that you don't go past there's going to be a certain line you're not going to want to cross with some people. And I think it's probably very important when it comes to some of the things that we're planning on doing and strategizing for.
Yeah. Andrew, law number 47.
Law number 47. The moment of victory is, or actually it says, do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, learn when to stop. The moment victory is often the moment of greatest peril. In the heat of victory, arrogance and overconfidence can push you past the goal you aimed for. And by going too far, you make more enemies than you defeat. Do not allow success to go to your head. There's no substitute for strategy and careful planning. Set a goal, and when you reach it, stop. And the point of this is actually dovetails with my sixth law of archotropism, which is based on the idea of pent up demand. And if you understand that order and chaos, which are right and left, if you understand these two are mutually exclusive and both kind of want to be forced on the other, then okay, what happens if the left really overreaches? Well, what will happen is the right is going to turn reactionary and really start shoving back. And same thing when the right overreaches, is that the left is going to turn reactionary and start really shoving back. And this is why basically every other decade you see about every 10 to 15 years it changes from a right-wing decade and a half to a left-wing decade and a half, and you can go through all throughout human history, and see the same sort of pattern of pent-up demand, being pushed too far, and then it is rather explosive sometimes. That pent-up demand has an explosive characteristic to it, to say the very least. And you see this even in every other election where, hey, one party, wins the election, and then the next party wins the opposite one. And like a president will get 2 years and then he loses in the midterms. This is that right there, is that they tend to overreach. People tend to have like a more middle-ish time preference for power. And when and so they're always going to try to be a little off center. So one party controls one house and the other party controls the other house and the presidency, something like that kind of balances out that time preference for power, that consumption rate. But if you start pushing way too far one way, that's going to create backlashes. And it doesn't matter which side you push too far on, the other side will, start shoving back. So that's why, it's important not to, overreach. And especially don't go too quickly. Rome was not built in a day, and it was not destroyed in a day, and neither was America. If you try to, push people too far too fast, they're going to turn reactionary on you and start pushing back on you, and you don't want that.
I know. Think of the pushback that's happened since Reagan won 49 states in 1984. I think Mondale got Minnesota, his home state. So yeah, just unbelievable how things can change. Pete, law 29.
Plan all the way to the end. The ending is everything. Plan all the way to it, taking into account all the possible consequences, obstacles, and twists of fortune that might reverse your hard work and give the glory to others. By planning to the end, you will not be overwhelmed by circumstances, and you will know when to stop. Gently guide fortune and help determine the future by thinking far ahead. I mean, this is just anyone who played sports or played team sports knew that you just had to play all the way, and especially if it was close. And when you're playing the game of power, you really have to be able to see all the angles, and you have to be able to see where the mistakes will come in. Like ever since Andrew started talking about the anti-tax and things like that, and how to implement it beyond just getting it passed, some of the ways that it would be used. you see people coming up with objections to it, and that's not a bad thing. It's sort of kind of annoying when we've already addressed it like extensively, especially the obvious ones. And people are like, well, what about this? And it's like, well, we covered that on this episode back here. You've already said you won't listen to the episode. So if Andrew's on, so yeah, okay. So yeah, maybe check. But yeah, I mean, if you're not planning for every single obstacle that could possibly come up, every little detour, then you're planning to fail. I mean, I know that sounds like we're at Tony Robbins now, but you are planning to fail. And if you're not able to see the end, and that's why I don't have a problem with people. Yeah, I'm an anarchist. I'm still an anarchist. I just don't talk about it anymore because there are a whole bunch of things, like it's all the way over there, and there's a whole bunch of things that needs to be done here first, and I really need to concentrate on this right here, right now. And if you're playing all the way to that end, to that private property kind of society that you can where you can make your own statecraft and own your own property, you're not paying taxes on it and everything. Baby steps, but yeah, there's no halfway in this either. We can't get to the middle of this and be like, all right, we can relax now. No, it has to be full on, straight to the end, teaching our kids this, because they're going to have to be able to keep this up too, and to
teach other people's kids it too.
Yeah, and maintain it. I mean, it's like, who was it said? It said a republic if you can keep it. Yeah, I mean, seriously.
Ben Franklin.
Yeah, I mean, well, how do you keep it? You're gonna have to teach your kids. You're gonna have to teach your kids that if people start talking about communism, you smash them. I mean, seriously, it's the only way forward at this point. I mean, yeah.
That was Hoppe's great lesson at the end of Democracy, the God That Failed. He said, we can't do this sort of classical liberal economist thing where everything is left to a cost-benefit analysis unless we take that moral high ground away from them and differentiate ourselves from the civilized people who believe in private property and voluntary exchange versus the uncivilized, primitive morons of the world. Well, then we're constantly walking on eggshells, waiting for the net. There's always going to be someone who has an idea of how to spend trillions of dollars to benefit someone. So we're on totally unstable ground there. Andrew, any final comments on either this topic at large or the book specifically?
I mean, what Pete just said, if you're not planning until all the way to the end, you're planning to fail. And I feel like that's I mean, it's a common meme where it's like, oh, okay, step one is like spread the message. Step two is, question mark. And step three is Ancapistan. And, I'm not trying to take a shot at Dave Smith there, but that's not what that is, but it's a common trope that, hey, you guys haven't quite thought through that second step of, well, how is it that we're going to get from actual where we are right now to where we're going? And if you don't know your enemy, you can't possibly talk about that. This is the point of being a Praxian, is that we have an archotropism based praxis, meaning that we're going to deal with the state based on its own incentives, which we've taken the time to derive and understand. And and I mean derive a priori. There you have to understand their a priori incentives in order to know how to handle them. And this is something that is brand new and something other people have not done yet. And if you don't take the time to really understand the enemy, you can't possibly plan. I mean, how can you plan for an enemy you don't understand? And this is the post-libertarian question of why is it that libertarianism works so damn well economically, but just not at all politically? It's because they have an incomplete praxeology, an incomplete praxis. You need archotropism to inform you of the state's incentives and to inform you of how to deal with them correctly.
Pete, final comments on the book or the topic in general?
I mean, what we're talking about here is we're talking about power. And it's something that libertarians don't want. I mean, they've been taught that power is evil, that power is a moral, is a moral problem. And power is really not a moral problem any more than capitalism is a moral problem. Like the commies say, power is just, it's life. I mean, there's power there's power dynamics in families. There's power dynamics in business relationships. Power, it's just natural. It's just hierarchy. It's just hierarchy, and that's something that that libertarians, a lot of libertarians, are scared of. I mean, I'm convinced that there are a lot of this is me straw manning again, but I'm convinced there's a lot of libertarians that just hate their dad. They really hate their dad because their dad told them what to do growing up, and they grew up rebelling against it. And I have legitimate reasons that maybe one day I'll explain why I hate my dad. But these are legitimate reasons that we'll all agree on. But I think they just, and it wasn't because he told me he wanted the best for me and he gave me advice and he told me do this and do that. That's just life. That's just what a parent's supposed to do, is guidance. And I think hierarchy and power, documents like this, books like this, will teach you exactly what it's all about and that you shouldn't be scared of it. I mean, power is the only thing that can defeat power. And to think, it's like something that a phrase that I've really grown to hate is good ideas don't require force. I mean, property.
That was always a cringe for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Property, just private property. You have to be able to defend it. I mean, if property is a good idea, it requires force to defend it. And then it'll be like, no, we're talking about initiatory force. Okay, so then you're against the whole American Revolution. So you're against the whole American Revolution, right? I mean, that's the logical conclusion. I mean, they used force to get liberty. It's picking and choosing. But I think that
even if you say you only believe in defensive force, well, okay, the best defense is a good offense. Even right there, it's like you're going on offense in order to, make sure your enemy doesn't know what he's supposed to be defending. I mean, that's Sun Tzu right there. That a general who is skilled in attack, has an opponent who has no idea what to defend.
And people will believe, nonsense like Colin Kaepernick was talking about how what coaches and NFL owners do is they look up and down at players to see how much money they can make off them. This is a power dynamic like the enslavement of Africans in the year 1492. I mean, the fact that he goes, this is a power dynamic, as if that's bad. I go, okay, how about the 30,000 screaming fans who work overtime to pay $10 a beer to watch you play a game? Any power involved in that? Any power involved in consuming products and services? And how about dating? Is there any power dynamics there? So yes, there's power dynamics in everything. So when the idiot Kaepernicks of the world think they're making some solid point, only a dumb populace wouldn't just see that and laugh. So that's why these conversations are so important. Andrew, what is the anti-tax plan?
The anti-tax plan is how we're going to make taxation obsolete for the next generation. And so your generation that is born today, they're going to grow up in a world where taxation is very nearly obsolete. And the reason for that is, what this is a modified version of a sovereign wealth fund, where you're having like 10,000 of them at like the local level. There's about 19,500 municipalities in the United States. And the idea is that, okay, all of these 19,500 municipalities, they all have about 8 to 14 months of taxes on hand that they've already collected. They're called reserves, and they use those for, to kind of balance out, their budgets whenever this is kind of like their savings account. And so if the sales tax might return different amounts every single year, and it might return less than they need, so they'll take money out of savings and use it for that. But really that money just sits there, for, year after year, gathering inflation, not interest. And my idea is, well, why don't we have that professionally managed by the, by actual licensed money managers who can generate a return on investment, and we could basically create a passive income to offset, for these local governments to offset, their tax burden on the people. And and if you allow compounding interest to take effect over time, then you never even need to raise taxes in order to fund it. It's just going to grow and grow and grow until the point where it's growing substantially faster than direct taxes. And at that point, you don't need direct taxation anymore. You're funding the government entirely off of passive income.
What is archotropism?
Archotropism is basically the problem that the anti-tax is seeking to solve. I started with my ministry with archotropism to try to explain the problems. This is the praxeology of sociopathy, basically. This is, what does economics look like when you don't give a damn about consent? And so I usually use it the two ways. One is the first way I just gave you, which is like the praxeology of economics minus consent, and sociopathic economics, Austrian version. And the other way is, this is the method or process by which the state will grow its power through extracting order from chaos. And this is like the service that they provide to the people is an aggressive order. And if basically, if there's chaos, if there's a you can think of chaos as a shortage of order. If there's a shortage of order, basically the people are demanding it, because it's like a layer two. If you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, order's like second tier, and on the bottom. And so they're going to demand it be resupplied to them very, very quickly. And the state will always says, well, instead of paying me like in money, like we do in the market, you pay me in power. And basically, so basically this is the state's incentive right there, that the more chaos there is, the more power I can grab, because, every time there's an outbreak of chaos, they can say to the people, okay, well, this happened because I didn't have X, Y, and Z powers, and that's what I need in order to protect you. And therefore, they're like this is the arsonist firefighter, sort of incentive that the state is kind of known for. This is the word for this now is archotropism. It comes from two Greek words, archos for ruler and tropos for to turn. This is why the society always turns towards rulers. And this is the economic explanation for power, basically. It's the economics of power.
Andrew, best place to find your collection of research?
Subscribestar.com/popular-liberty is the place where you can find some of my articles for free. And I'm about to post another one. And you can also join my Discord group in order to from the Subscribestar, in order to ask me any questions and get very, very detailed responses, which I cannot do on Twitter. I'm done with that. It's 280 characters is bullshit. So
if I want an introduction to your work and I don't have much time, which article of yours should I read?
You can read the first one on archotropism. Introduction to Archotropism is about 1,500 words. And it will be very informative to get that discussion in your head started about why power exists in the first place.
Pete, Libertarian Institute, of course. These links will be in the description. If someone wants to get an intro into what you're working on now, is there a specific article or podcast of yours that they should listen to?
I believe it's episode 624 with Andrew talking about the anti-tax. It was like a real introduction to the anti-tax, and that's a lot of my thinking right now. And I just want to say that I went to the Libertarian Institute a little bit earlier to upload an episode, and our end of the year fund drive was at 69%. Nice.
Hey, that thing continues to grow. We're so appreciative of everyone who donates. Thank you so much to the listeners and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me for this great topic. Take care.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.